I'm 28 years old, married to my husband Mark, who's 31. We have a little boy together, and I'm currently pregnant with my second child. If you were to look at our lives from the outside, you'd probably think we were doing well: a house, jobs, a toddler, another baby on the way. But beneath the surface, our marriage has been rotting away for years, poisoned by betrayal, lies, and secrets. The truth is, I've been living with the knowledge that my husband has been unfaithful to me for longer than I care to admit. When I first found out, I was devastated. I didn't scream. I didn't throw him out. I didn't even tell anyone right away. I just sat with a crushing realization that the man I trusted with my whole life was sneaking around behind my back, sending kisses and intimate messages to someone else. It started small. I noticed Mark was unusually protective of his phone, keeping it face down or carrying it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. At first, I brushed it off as paranoia. I was pregnant with our first child then, hormonal, tired, and constantly doubting myself. But one night, when he left his phone charging on the nightstand while he showered, I finally gave into the gnawing suspicion and looked. What I found shattered me. Dozens of messages. Late night, I miss you texts. Pictures. And yes, her contact saved under the name Kiss Mark. He wasn't even trying to hide it cleverly. I remember staring at the screen, my stomach twisting, my hands shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. When I confronted him, he brushed it off, swearing it was just flirting and meant nothing. He apologized half-heartedly, promised it wouldn't happen again, and begged me not to ruin the family we were building. Against my better judgment, I stayed. I wanted to believe him. I wanted our baby to be born into a whole family, not broken before it even had a chance to begin. But once the trust is broken, nothing feels the same. By the time my baby shower rolled around, my resentment was simmering like a pot ready to boil over. His family, my family, our friends, everyone was gathered to celebrate new life, but all I could think about was the ugly betrayal festering beneath the surface. And I couldn't stomach the idea of pretending everything was perfect. So I did something petty. Something I'm not proud of, but I don't regret either. For the baby shower, there was a big balloon filled with confetti that was supposed to pop for a fun little moment. Instead of confetti, I slipped in tiny printed screenshots of Mark's texts with his affair partner. All the I miss yous, the emojis, the flirtation, everything. When the balloon popped, the room filled with floating little scraps of paper. At first, people were confused, reaching down to pick them up. Then the whispers started. Then the gasps. Then the silence, so heavy it pressed against my chest. Mark's face turned crimson, then pale. He didn't say a word. He just stormed out, humiliated. I stood there in the middle of the chaos, my heart pounding, part of me trembling with guilt, and another part seething with satisfaction. Everyone finally knew what I had been dealing with. After that, our relationship was never the same. We stayed together, more out of inertia than love. He claimed he had ended things, though I doubted it. He became more secretive, more defensive. His phone now had extra passwords. He even changed her contact name to something ridiculous like, "I love my wife," as if that would convince me of his loyalty. Still, life went on. We raised our child. We coexisted. Sometimes I wondered if staying was the biggest mistake of my life, but leaving felt impossible then. I was scared, financially dependent in some ways, and still holding on to the hope that maybe he would change. But deep down, I knew better. A year later, I found myself pregnant again. Though this time, I swear it wasn't born out of love or closeness. Our intimacy had dwindled to almost nothing, but somehow one night it happened. I can't even describe it as passion. It felt more like going through the motions, two people tied together by duty, not desire. And when I saw those two lines on the pregnancy test, my feelings were complicated. Yes, I loved the idea of another baby. Yes, I loved being a mom. But the thought of raising another child with Mark, a man I no longer trusted, filled me with dread. The turning point came when I finally admitted to myself that I was done. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep swallowing the anger and humiliation. I wanted out. So I asked for a divorce. I hired a lawyer, had the papers drawn up, and arranged for them to be served. The day the server showed up at the door, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear, because I knew Mark wouldn't take it well. Relief, because I was finally taking control of my life again. Mark's reaction was predictable: denial. He refused to sign. He kept insisting we could make it work this time, as if changing a contact name in his phone somehow erased years of betrayal. He told me he'd fight for custody, threatened me, begged me, everything in between. But I was resolute. I was done with his bullshit. I packed up my things, grabbed my son's essentials, and left. My childhood friend, Daniel, offered to help. He even brought his truck over to move boxes, and his family opened their home to me while I figured things out. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of safety and support. Mark, of course, hated it. He told me Daniel had no business helping me, that it was inappropriate. He accused me of cheating, the irony not lost on me. But I didn't care what he thought anymore. I was finally moving on. Still, the situation wasn't clean. Mark kept texting, calling, threatening. He refused to accept that it was over. And in the middle of all that chaos, he found out Daniel's mother was planning a baby shower for me. And that's when I realized this wasn't just over for me. It was about to get uglier than I ever imagined. When I left Mark, I thought the hardest part would be packing up my life and walking out that door. But the truth is, the hardest part has been what came after. The constant tug-of-war, the texts, the phone calls, the accusations, and the way he keeps trying to insert himself into every decision I make. Mark doesn't believe in endings. To him, my decision to divorce was just another argument, something to be negotiated until I gave in. But I wasn't bluffing this time. I was finished. The marriage wasn't just broken, it was poisoned, and staying in it would have destroyed me completely. Still, there's no easy way to walk away from someone you build a life with, especially when there are children involved. Our son is too young to understand what's happening, but he can feel the tension. Kids always can. That alone breaks my heart more than anything else. He deserves stability, not parents who can barely stand to be in the same room together. And then there's this second pregnancy. I never intended for things to unfold this way. To be honest, I was already emotionally checked out of my marriage when I found out I was pregnant again. I wanted out, and now I was carrying another child that would forever bind me to Mark, at least in his eyes. But the truth is complicated, more complicated than even he knows. When I told Mark about the pregnancy, he reacted with surprise but also a smug kind of relief, as if this meant I wouldn't leave. Like this baby was some sort of chain locking me to him forever. He seemed to forget that a baby can't magically erase years of infidelity and mistrust. I didn't feel joy when I told him. I felt dread. I knew this wasn't the beginning of a happy family chapter. This was just another layer of complication in a marriage that was already sinking. By the time I served him divorce papers, Mark was furious. He insisted that we could make it work. He said things like, "This time will be different, and I'm a changed man." But how could I believe that? I'd seen his lies firsthand. He thought renaming his affair partner in his phone was proof of his commitment, when all it really showed me was how deep his deception went. I told him flat out that I was done. That I wasn't going to stay in a marriage built on lies. That I deserved better, and so did our children. That's when his tone shifted from pleading to threatening. He told me he'd fight for custody. That I'd regret this. That I couldn't just walk away from a family. At first, his threat shook me. I didn't want to lose my son, and I didn't want my baby dragged into a bitter court battle. But then he said something that stopped me cold. He told me he'd fight for custody of both kids. Both. As if the baby growing inside me was his by default. As if my body, my choices, and the truth didn't matter. I laughed bitterly and told him he could try all he wanted, but he wasn't going to get custody of a baby that isn't even his. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I didn't mean to blurt it out like that. I hadn't planned on telling him. Not like this, not yet. But the words came spilling out in my anger, and I didn't take them back. The baby isn't Mark's. I know how that sounds. And maybe in the eyes of some people, that makes me just as bad as he was. But here's the truth. After years of neglect, lies, and betrayal, I found comfort somewhere else. Someone who was there for me when Mark wasn't. Someone who listened. Someone who reminded me what it felt like to be wanted for more than just appearances. I'm not proud of how it happened, but I also don't regret it. Because for once, I wasn't the fool. I wasn't the one being lied to and gaslit. For once, I had a choice, and I chose myself. But Mark can't handle the idea that he doesn't have control over this narrative anymore. After I told him the baby wasn't his, he lost it. He yelled. He cursed. He accused me of ruining his life. He said I was trying to humiliate him the way I had at the first baby shower. He even accused me of cheating with Daniel, the friend who had been helping me move. The irony was almost too much to bear. Here was a man who carried on a whole affair during my first pregnancy, and yet the thought of me moving on, of me finding solace elsewhere, was unbearable to him. I hung up on him. Since then, the harassment has only escalated. Late-night calls. Angry voicemails. Texts filled with insults and demands. He still refuses to sign the divorce papers, as if his refusal somehow keeps us bound together. I've stopped responding, but that doesn't stop him from trying. Meanwhile, Daniel and his family have been my lifeline. His mom insisted on throwing me a baby shower, something simple and supportive to remind me that I'm not alone. I wasn't sure at first. I felt embarrassed, like maybe I didn't deserve to be celebrated after all the drama. But she told me I needed to remember that this baby, no matter the circumstances, deserves joy. And she's right. When Mark found out about the shower, though, he was livid. He showed up when Daniel was helping me pack some more things, demanding to know if I had signed the papers. He tried to act tough, tried to assert control, but Daniel stood his ground. He told Mark it was none of his business anymore, and that I had people supporting me whether he liked it or not. Mark didn't take that well. He kept insisting that his mother would be the one to throw the shower, as if that settled it. Daniel laughed in his face. That only made Mark angrier. He left seething, muttering something about making it right and showing everyone the truth. And that's when I realized he was planning something. I don't know exactly what, but I know Mark well enough to sense it. He can't stand being humiliated. He can't stand losing control. And if I know him at all, he's going to try to take back that control in the most dramatic way possible. I've seen the way his mind works. Petty, vindictive, cruel when cornered. He's the type to look for revenge that makes a spectacle. And with a baby shower coming up, I can't shake the feeling that he's plotting something. It keeps me up at night. I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, my hand resting on my belly, and I wonder what kind of father, or ex-husband, would weaponize something as innocent as a celebration just to make a point. Then again, I've seen what he's capable of when his pride is wounded. And deep down, I know this isn't over. Not by a long shot. By the time the second baby shower was being planned, I could feel the storm brewing in the background. Mark had always been the type to cling when things slipped out of his control. In the early years of our marriage, it was almost flattering, his need to check in on me, to know where I was, to insist we did everything together. At the time, I mistook it for love. Looking back now, I see it for what it was: possession. Control disguised as devotion. That need to control has only grown more desperate since I told him I wanted a divorce. He still calls constantly, even after I blocked him on my phone. He creates new numbers, leaves voicemails dripping with bitterness. Sometimes he pleads, "We can fix this, please think about the kids." Other times he rages, "You're nothing without me. You'll regret this. You're not taking my family away from me." The worst calls are the ones where his voice is eerily calm. In those, he sounds rehearsed, like he's plotting every word. "You humiliated me once before. Don't think I've forgotten. Don't think I won't even the score." It terrifies me because I know him. I know that when he feels cornered, he lashes out in ways meant to wound. And with this baby shower coming up, a celebration planned by Daniel's family, not his, I know it's only a matter of time before he tries something reckless. Daniel has been my anchor through all of this. I don't know what I'd do without him. He's been more than just a friend. He's been a protector, a steady presence reminding me that I'm not alone, even when Mark tries to make me feel isolated. His mom, bless her, has poured her heart into planning this shower. Nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, just a warm gathering of people who care about me and this baby. But I can't shake the feeling that Mark will find a way to twist it. Every time I picture balloons or decorations, I flash back to my first baby shower, the confetti balloon filled with tiny screenshots of his affair. The gasps, the awkward silence, the way Mark stormed out in humiliation. That moment became the defining image of our marriage for me. The mask ripped off, the lies exposed for everyone to see. Now I can't stop thinking he'll try to recreate that humiliation, only this time aimed at me. I've caught hints of it in the things he says when he manages to corner me on the phone. He'll mutter about poetic justice or say things like, "Remember the balloon? You thought you were clever. Wait until you see what clever really looks like." His words make my skin crawl. I want to tell Daniel, to warn him, but part of me feels ashamed. Ashamed that I married someone capable of such petty cruelty. Ashamed that I ever stayed with him after the first betrayal. Ashamed that now, even while I'm trying to start fresh, I can't escape his shadow. One night, a week before the shower, Daniel found me sitting on the couch long after everyone had gone to bed. My son was asleep in the guest room, my belly heavy with the baby I was carrying, and I just sat there staring at the floor, lost in thought. "You're scared he's going to ruin it, aren't you?" Daniel asked gently. I looked up at him, startled. What if he shows up? What if he tries to embarrass me again? What if he does something in front of everyone, your family, your friends? I couldn't handle that, not again. Daniel sat down beside me. "If he tries anything, I'll be there. He doesn't get to control you anymore. Not here. Not with us." His confidence was steady, grounding, but it didn't erase the knot in my stomach. Because the truth was, Mark still had power, not the kind of power he thought he had, but the kind that comes from fear. He knew exactly how to push my buttons, how to keep me second-guessing myself. And the closer the shower got, the more intense his efforts became. He showed up at my old house one afternoon while I was picking up the last of my things. I had arranged for him not to be there, but of course he forgot. He leaned against the doorway with that smug half-smile, holding the shredded pieces of the divorce papers in his hand. "Confetti," he said, his voice low, almost gleeful. "That's what you reduced my life to, isn't it? A stupid shower game. But don't worry, babe. I can play games too." I froze, my hands trembling as I stuffed clothes into a bag. "Stay away from me, Mark. Stay away from the shower." He laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world. That was when I knew he was planning something. I didn't tell Daniel the full extent of what Mark said. I couldn't bring myself to repeat the words. But I did admit that Mark had hinted at showing up. Daniel's jaw tightened, his protective streak flaring. "Then I'll make sure he regrets it if he does." The days leading up to the shower felt like walking on eggshells. Every knock on the door made me jump. Every phone vibration made my heart race. At night, I lay awake, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. I imagined Mark bursting in, screaming, waving around papers or accusations. I imagined him turning what should have been a moment of joy into another humiliating spectacle. And worst of all, I imagined my son watching it unfold, seeing his father and mother at war, caught in the middle of chaos he could never understand. The night before the shower, I sat in the nursery Daniel's mom had helped prepare, folding tiny onesies and trying to breathe through the anxiety. I wanted so badly to feel excitement, to let myself believe that tomorrow could be a happy day. But the fear lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. I thought about the baby growing inside me. This little life didn't ask for any of this. Not the betrayal, not the divorce, not the tug-of-war between two parents who couldn't coexist. This baby deserved love, stability, and peace. And yet here I was, bracing for another round of drama I couldn't control. When I finally drifted to sleep, my dreams were restless. Balloons popping, confetti raining down. Except it wasn't confetti, it was shredded divorce papers, fluttering around me like accusations. And in the middle of it, Mark's voice echoing, "Poetic justice." I woke up in a cold sweat, clutching my belly, whispering to myself that it was just a dream. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was a warning. The morning of the shower. The sun was shining, the decorations were beautiful, and the house was filled with laughter and warmth. For a moment, I let myself believe it could be okay. That maybe Mark would stay away, that maybe I could finally celebrate this baby without fear. But then, as the guests began to gather, I caught sight of something out the window, a familiar car pulling up down the street. My heart sank. Mark was here. And I knew, without a doubt, that whatever he had planned, this was the moment he was going to unleash it. The day of the shower started beautifully. Daniel's mom had gone above and beyond, decorating her backyard with soft pastel balloons, strings of fairy lights, and a long table filled with food she and her sisters had cooked from scratch. There were cupcakes with little baby booties on top, a banner that read, "Welcome, little one," and a big round balloon that would be popped later to reveal the gender. For the first time in months, I felt light again. Surrounded by women who hugged me, who celebrated me, who told me I looked radiant instead of exhausted, I let myself forget, if only for a few hours, about the chaos that was Mark. Daniel stayed close, helping with the kids, making sure I had a plate of food, checking in with me in that quiet way of his. His presence grounded me, gave me the courage to smile and laugh and let go of some of the fear I'd been carrying. But deep down, I couldn't ignore the gnawing dread, because I had seen Mark's car outside. He was here, lurking, waiting, and when I saw him step through the side gate, uninvited, my stomach dropped. He walked in like he owned the place, chin high, eyes scanning the crowd, a smug little smile plastered across his face. Conversations faltered. Guests exchanged confused glances. Daniel immediately moved to my side, his whole body tensing like a guard dog ready to pounce. "Mark," I hissed, my voice sharp but low. "You shouldn't be here." "Oh, relax," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "I just came to celebrate my wife and our baby." "Ex-wife," I corrected, my hands trembling against the fabric of my dress. "And you weren't invited." Daniel stepped forward. "You need to leave. Now." Mark chuckled darkly, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "Oh, don't worry. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to support. In fact, I even brought a little something special for the big reveal." That was when I saw it, another balloon, identical to the one Daniel's mom had filled earlier. Only this one wasn't part of the decorations. Mark held it in his hand like a trophy, his eyes glinting with cruel delight. My blood ran cold. "What did you do?" I whispered. Mark's grin widened. "You humiliated me once before, remember? The confetti, the screenshots? Everyone got to see what a fool I was. Well, it's my turn now. Poetic justice, sweetheart." The room seemed to close in around me. The laughter and chatter had evaporated, replaced by tense silence. Daniel's jaw clenched as he stepped even closer, his arm brushing mine protectively. "You're not doing this," Daniel said firmly. But Mark ignored him. He lifted the balloon slightly, as though presenting it to the crowd. "You see, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a baby shower. This is the truth reveal. Because inside this balloon isn't confetti or cute pink and blue scraps. No. Inside this balloon is the reality my dear wife doesn't want any of you to know." I felt the world tilt beneath me. I knew what was inside. Shredded pieces of the divorce papers. Maybe printouts of messages. Maybe worse. Whatever it was meant to shame me. "Mark, stop," I said, my voice shaking, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "This isn't about you. This is about my child." Mark's eyes flashed. "Your child? Or should I say someone else's?" The gasp that rippled through the crowd cut through me like a knife. I hadn't told anyone outside of my closest circle the truth about the baby's paternity. I wanted to protect my child, to shield them from being branded before they even entered this world. And here was Mark, ready to rip that open in the cruelest way possible. Before I could react, Daniel lunged forward, grabbing the balloon from Mark's hands. The two of them struggled, voices rising, tension spilling over into chaos. Guests shouted, some rushing to pull them apart, others frozen in disbelief. "Let go," Mark snarled. "They need to see the truth." "No," Daniel growled back, his grip like iron. You don't get to do this to her. Not again. In the scuffle, the balloons slipped from their hands and hit the ground with a sharp pop. The contents scattered into the air. Not colorful confetti. Not pink or blue scraps. But shredded white paper, fluttering down around us like mocking snowflakes. Divorce papers. Torn into tiny pieces, the words petition for dissolution of marriage faintly visible on some scraps. The guests gasped again, murmurs rippling through the crowd. My face burned as I looked around, mortified, humiliated all over again. My heart raced so fast I thought I might faint. Mark threw his arms out, triumphant. See? This is who she is. She thinks she can humiliate me. She thinks she can walk away from me. She's carrying another man's baby and parading around like some saint while tearing our family apart. The words echoed, slicing through the fragile peace I had built since leaving him. I wanted to scream, to deny, to hide. But before I could speak, Daniel stepped in front of me, shielding me from the stares. That's enough, he said, his voice cold and steady. You've embarrassed yourself enough, Mark. Get out before I make you. Mark sneered, but for the first time, I saw a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. The crowd wasn't on his side. Instead of the validation he craved, he was met with judgmental glares and whispers. He had tried to turn the tables, but all he had done was prove just how petty and vindictive he truly was. Daniel's mom stepped forward, her voice sharp and commanding. This is my home, and you are no longer welcome here. Leave. Now. Mark's face twisted with rage, but he knew he was beaten. He muttered something under his breath, his fists clenched, and stormed out through the gate, slamming it behind him. The silence he left behind was deafening. I stood there, shaking, tears streaming down my face. Daniel turned to me, his expression softening, his hand gently brushing against mine. You don't have to say anything, he whispered. They saw him for who he really is. You don't need to defend yourself. But I felt exposed, vulnerable, stripped bare in front of people I cared about. I sank into a chair, clutching my belly, trying to steady my breathing. Guests slowly came over, offering hugs, reassurance, quiet words of support. Some admitted they had suspected Mark was trouble all along. Others said they admired my strength for leaving. For the first time, I realized something important. I wasn't alone. Mark's attempt to destroy me had failed. Yes, he embarrassed me. Yes, he forced the truth into the open in a way I never wanted. But instead of breaking me, he revealed his own ugliness. And in that moment, as Daniel knelt beside me, his hand steady on mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. A hope that I could move forward. Hope that I could build a new life for myself and my children, free from Mark's shadow. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I could be happy again. Mark never signed the papers willingly, but the court forced his hand. His threats about custody fizzled when the truth about his affair and his erratic behavior came to light. He got limited visitation with our son. As for the baby I carried, the court recognized what I already knew. Mark had no claim. He still tries to worm his way back into my life sometimes, through texts or calls. But now, I don't flinch. I don't cower. I don't let him dictate the terms of my story anymore. Because in the end, he taught me something he never meant to. I'm stronger without him. And when I look at my children, when I see their faces light up with joy, I know I made the right choice. Mark thought he could turn my life into confetti, shredded and scattered. But all he really did was clear the space for me to build something new. Something real. Something mine.